When I told my parents I had a huge surprise for them, I swear they thought I was joking. My mom laughed nervously, like she always does when she doesn't believe me, and my dad just raised his eyebrows. "Come on," he said. "You don't have to spend money on us. We're fine." But I insisted, and that's how, 3 weeks later, I was standing in front of them with tickets in my hand not just for any vacation, but for an ultra-luxury 5-day cruise along the California coast. It was the kind of trip they had dreamed about for years but never could afford. When they saw the tickets, my mom actually cried. My dad tried to act tough, but even he hugged me tighter than usual. I thought I was giving them a gift. What I didn't know was that this cruise would change everything about my family forever. We arrived at the port early in the morning. The ship was massive, a floating city with glittering glass balconies, pools on the upper deck, and restaurants that looked like palaces. My parents were speechless. "This is too much," Mom whispered, clutching her purse like she didn't belong there. I put my arm around her shoulders. "Mom, you do belong here. You both deserve this more than anyone." For a while, it felt perfect. We checked into our cabin. It had an ocean view, soft white bed sheets, and even champagne waiting in a bucket. My dad kept saying, "I can't believe this is real." I wanted that trip to erase years of stress, money problems, and all the sacrifices my parents had made for me. For the first 2 days, it really did feel magical. We swam, ate dinners with live music, and even watched the sunset from the deck. But on the third day, everything changed. It started small. We were having breakfast in one of the huge dining halls when my dad's face went pale. He was staring across the room. I followed his eyes and saw a woman in a red dress. She was beautiful, elegant, the kind of person who seemed like she belonged on a magazine cover. She was sitting alone, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone. "Dad, are you okay?" I asked. But he didn't answer. He just kept staring. Finally, he excused himself and left the table. My mom looked confused, but tried to brush it off. An hour later, when we went back to the pool, we saw him again talking to the same woman in the red dress. At first, I thought maybe they were old friends, but the way they were standing, too close, too familiar. My mom noticed it too. Her smile froze, and she just sat there quietly. That night, after dinner, Mom confronted him in our cabin. "Who is she?" she asked. Dad pretended not to know what she meant. But my mom isn't stupid. She had seen the way he looked at that woman. "Don't you dare lie to me," she said, her voice shaking. And that's when the truth came out. The woman in the red dress wasn't just some stranger. She was my dad's ex, but not just any ex. She was the woman he had dated before he met my mom, the woman he had once promised to marry. My mom's face turned white. "You told me she moved away. You told me she was out of your life forever," she whispered. Dad just looked at the floor. He admitted that they hadn't spoken in years, but he didn't explain why his eyes lit up the second he saw her. The next day, things got worse. I woke up early and went to grab some coffee. On my way back to the cabin, I saw him again. My dad, standing on the deck, with her. They were laughing together, not just polite conversation, real laughter, the kind that comes when you share a secret. I froze. I didn't know whether to confront him or pretend I hadn't seen. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. He was holding her hand. I ran back to the cabin before he saw me. My heart was racing. Should I tell my mom? Should I wait? When he finally returned, he acted normal. Too normal. Mom smiled at him like nothing was wrong, but I could see in her eyes she was dying inside. That night, something happened that I will never forget. We were at the ship's big gala dinner, where everyone dressed up. Mom wore her best dress, the one she had saved for years. She looked stunning, even more beautiful than the woman in red. But Dad barely looked at her. His eyes kept drifting across the room, to her. I clenched my fists under the table. I wanted to scream. How could he do this? After everything Mom had sacrificed? After everything I had done to give them this trip? Halfway through the dinner, Mom excused herself to go to the restroom. That's when Dad stood up too. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Just getting some air," he mumbled. I didn't believe him. I followed. And that's when I saw him. Not outside, not on the deck, but in a quiet corner of the ship. With her. They weren't just talking. They weren't just holding hands. They were kissing. My entire body went numb. I wanted to run in, to punch him, to scream in his face. But I couldn't move. My legs felt like stone. I backed away before they could see me. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. I had brought my parents here to give them the happiest week of their lives. Instead, I had given my mom the worst betrayal imaginable. When I got back to the table, my mom was waiting. She asked where Dad was. My throat tightened. I couldn't tell her. Not yet. But deep down, I knew the truth was going to explode. And when it did, this cruise would turn into the biggest nightmare of our lives. When we boarded the cruise ship, I couldn't stop smiling. The sheer size of it was insane. Towering decks, glass elevators, restaurants that looked straight out of a five-star hotel. My parents were practically speechless. My dad kept muttering, "This must have cost a fortune." And my mom, she was already tearing up. For me, that was worth every penny. I wanted them to finally feel what it was like to be spoiled, to live like royalty, even just for 5 days. But I didn't know. This dream trip was about to expose secrets I never, ever imagined. The first day went flawlessly. We had dinner in the main dining room with chandeliers hanging above us. The waiter brought a dessert tray that looked like it belonged in a Parisian cafe. My parents laughed more than I'd seen them laugh in years. I filmed them a little, just short clips for myself, to remember this moment. At that time I thought, this is it. This is the highlight of my life. I couldn't have been more wrong. The second day, something strange happened. While we were at the pool, a man in his late 50s walked by. He froze the second he saw my dad. My dad noticed him, too, and his entire expression shifted. It wasn't just recognition, it was panic. The man walked straight up and said, "Mark? Mark Richards? That's my dad's name." But here's the thing. My dad shook his head and said, "Sorry, you've got the wrong person." The man looked stunned. He didn't argue, but his eyes lingered on my dad for a few seconds too long. Then he walked away. My mom noticed it too. Later that evening, when Dad went to the restroom, she whispered, "That man knew him. I could tell." I laughed it off, thinking maybe it was just a case of mistaken identity. But deep down, something about the way my dad's hands trembled stuck with me. On the third day during breakfast, the same man approached again. This time, he was holding a drink and smiling. "Mark, it's me, Jerry, from Sacramento. It's been over 20 years. You can't tell me you don't remember me." My dad's face went pale. He pushed his plate away, stood up, and without a word walked out of the dining hall. I just sat there stunned. My mom chased after him, leaving me sitting across from Jerry. Jerry leaned in and said words that made my heart slam into my chest. I don't know what he told you, but I know your dad from before. Way before. Back when he wasn't the man you think he is. I demanded. What do you mean? Jerry smirked, shaking his head. Ask him, if he even dares to tell you. Then he left. I was shaking. My entire body felt cold. What could he possibly mean? That evening, I confronted my dad in the cabin. Who is Jerry? Why does he keep saying he knows you? My dad refused to look me in the eyes. He just muttered, It's nothing. Drop it. But I didn't drop it. I pressed harder, raising my voice. Finally, he snapped. Fine. You want the truth? You want to know who I really am? Then brace yourself. He sat down heavily, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Before you were born, before I met your mother, I wasn't a good man. I was involved with things, illegal things. Jerry was part of it. We ran schemes, fraud, theft, things I'm not proud of. My mom gasped. She had tears in her eyes. You told me you worked in construction back then. My dad nodded miserably. I lied. I wanted to bury it all. When I met you, and later when we had our child, I swore I'd change. And I did. But Jerry, he's from the past I wanted to forget. I didn't know what to say. My whole world felt like it was cracking. The next day, Jerry wasn't so friendly. He cornered me while I was walking alone on the upper deck. Your dad owes me. Big time. Don't let him fool you into thinking he's just some innocent family man. He walked away and left us to take the fall. I snapped back. Why are you telling me this? He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Because I lost everything. I went to prison for 7 years. And your father? He walked free. If he doesn't make it right, I'll make sure you, your mom, everyone, finds out exactly what kind of man he is. Maybe even the authorities. I froze. My chest was pounding so hard I thought I'd faint. That night, I told my dad about Jerry's threat. My mom was already crying, overwhelmed by everything. My dad clenched his fists, his voice trembling with anger. He's trying to drag me back into that life. I'm not that man anymore. I won't let him destroy what I have. But I had to ask the question that burned in my chest. Dad, is it true? Did you let him take the fall for something you did? His silence told me everything. On the final day of the cruise, Jerry made his move. He came to our cabin, bold as ever, demanding money. A lot of money. Pay me or I'll ruin you, he sneered. My dad stood tall, staring him down. For a moment, I thought he might actually give in. But then, something in him hardened. No, he said firmly. I've spent 20 years building a real life. I'm not giving you a dime. If you want to ruin me, do it, but you will not touch my family. Jerry's face twisted with rage. He lunged at my dad, and suddenly the two of them were shoving each other. My mom screamed. I jumped between them, yelling for security. Within minutes, cruise staff arrived and pulled them apart. Jerry kept shouting that my dad was a criminal, that he had proof. My dad stayed silent, his head bowed. When we disembarked, my dad was a shadow of himself. He looked 10 years older. My mom couldn't stop crying. I was left torn between love for the man who raised me and the horror of what I'd learned. And then the final blow came. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from the FBI. They wanted to ask my father some questions regarding old, unresolved cases connected to Jerry's claims. My perfect gift, a luxury cruise meant to bring us closer, had instead reopened a door my dad had tried desperately to keep closed. And now, our lives may never be the same.